more. Students enjoy small class size, close relationships with faculty, and immersive study. Wesleyan.edu/summer. You're listening to 88.1 FM WESU Middletown, a community service of Wesleyan University. Up next is The Business Buzz with Jeff Sherman, taking a look at innovative and cool technology and businesses right here in Connecticut. Catch The Business Buzz each and every Friday afternoon at 4 p.m. as part of our Monday through Friday 4 p.m. local talk block, only on 88.1 FM WESU Middletown.
The Business Buzz on WESU is proudly sponsored in part by Carlson and Demir, located right here in downtown Middletown. Carlson and Demir providing legal representation for victims of serious injury and for those facing criminal charges. On the web at carlsondemir.com, 860-819-1034.
Birds are chirping and spring is in the air. Why not give a donation of any kind to WESU at wesufm.org/pledge. Donations from listeners like you keep our station running to provide the best freeform radio content in Connecticut. Once again, to donate, go to wesufm.org/pledge. Thanks in advance.
I pledge allegiance to WESU 88.1 Middletown and to Freeform Radio, for which it stands, one station, under Ben, indivisible, with talk shows and music for all. Consider supporting WESU 88.1 during our pledge drive by donating at our website, wesufm.org/pledge. And so, my fellow listener, ask not what your station can do for you. Ask what you can do for your station. Thank you.
Yes, you need to ask what you can do for WESU. And Marty, what can people out there do for WESU?
Well, I think just by going to the WESUFM.org website and hitting the pledge button, any little bit is certainly going to help. I mean, I think we're at about $7,000 to our goal of, I think, close to 20 is what we're looking for. So, we're certainly going to be on all summer, but as the school year winds down here at Wesleyan, we would encourage those folks who have been listening to us faithfully now for a number of years to think about all the good things that the Buzz offers for you every Friday afternoon from 4 to 5, and maybe offer a little support.
And we're also graced. We have Marty Keenan, Studio B, as well as Chris Callander. But we have Julia Atkin. She's a student, I would assume, obviously, at Wesleyan. And she's interning today. And Julia, before we get into a little bit about you, tell our listeners why you think they should go to WESUFM.org and click the donation tab.
I think that Freeform Radio is such an unique opportunity, and we love to be supported, and we love our listeners, and we love the support.
That sounds good to me. Now, you're interning for a reason. Obviously, you have a show in mind. What kind of show would that be?
I would like to do a music show kind of surrounding the genre of funk. Me and another freshman, yeah.
What is the state of funk nowadays? I mean, seriously, because that was... when I went to school, that was a huge thing. Has it dipped, and is it on the uptake? I mean, what's going on with funk?
It's definitely dipped, but there's still people, maybe not specifically funk, but a lot of like R&B and hip hop that uses sort of funk riffs. So it's not a dying genre.
And what do you think, in your estimation, is, let's say, your two favorite funk bands?
I would have to say Parliament.
Yeah, I would agree. Yes.
And maybe Earth, Wind, and Fire.
I know this is like blasphemy, but Earth, Wind, and Fire was huge when I was in high school and college, and I hated them. I'm sorry, no, Julie, you're a very nice person. I'm sure your show's going to be amazing, but
Thank you.
Never liked Earth, Wind, and Fire.
That's just fine.
Chris, do you ever hear of, you're not a big music person, but do you ever hear of Earth, Wind, and Fire?
I have heard of them, but I don't think I can name a particular
Marty,
song.
I'm sure you were a big fan.
And I was a big fan. And then you've got Average White Band and Tower of Power, and as you said, the Parliament with the Funkadelics.
So it's all going to be good, and I think you'll get a lot of interest, Julia. I think that sounds like a great idea. I would try to tune into that because, I grew up with like classic rock and stuff like that, and a lot of commercial stations that were on the fun drive now play a lot of classic rock. And literally, if I had to do that for a living, I think I'd jump out the window because how many times can you listen to "Start Me Up" over and over and over? It's like, oh my God. So I wish you all the best. I think it'll be good, and you'll join the discussion today, won't you?
Sure.
This is kind of a talk show. Our first thing is kind of a lighter discussion point, and that has to do with let's see, I'll throw it out to Chris first now, and Marty both. Why not just join in and have a little discussion here that almost 20 years ago, God, time flies, the XFL came on. Chris, I think you still remember that, do you?
I do remember that.
Okay, and I am wrong hardly ever. But I was wrong on that one because I remember I was at a bar, and I think, it's going to crush it. I mean, like a year before it came out, it's going to be amazing, blah, blah, blah. And I remember this because I was working in a corporate job then. It was like the first numbers came in for viewership, and it crushed it, like the first, and then it just imploded. Because I think that they had a lot of gimmicks, He Hate Me. It was just like, and they had literally, I'm not kidding around, I don't think they were naked, but like strippers and like hot tubs. It was like a joke. It was a charade, a circus. But according to Vince McMahon, he's just going to basically, it's going to be straight up football. It's not, and I say with 8 teams, I'd say it's less than a 50-50 shot. But given the state of, and no politically neutral, like there is no protest, nothing,
no social issues,
just and also supposedly like safer. So I think they have about a 50-50. I think there's like limited, if any, replays in a 2-hour game. What do you think?
I think it'll probably fail.
Yeah, I would agree.
You're competing against the NFL and also college football.
I agree.
And also in terms of going to games, high school football, especially in large parts of the country, high school football is. So
there's a lot of competition. I would agree with that.
So I don't think so. Although maybe if they pick some localities that could support a team, and you have.
By the way, Hartford might be one of them. I couldn't get it. I had it at work, but I couldn't get it here. That the young kid, he seems like a young, probably Julia's age, right? He was talking about the XFL, and he went over and he literally said. He talked about all the possibilities. San Antonio, that seems good. He goes Hartford slammed it because McMahon's from Stanford, whatever.
Yes.
And it's also, believe it or not, Hartford is the largest metropolitan area without a professional sports team. So
really,
that is true.
Wow,
that is true.
I think they're also up against the fact that the NFL and football itself, quote unquote, a religion in this country, and the traditionalists are such that they're just even pushing back to the norms, if you will, of the NFL in terms of just kickoffs and what constitutes a catch, and the social ramifications of people having self-expression.
Well, the ratings for the NFL are way down.
And as I'm saying, the traditionalists are such that they're even turning on the NFL.
And that's why there's an opportunity for a team that would be more traditional, I think.
Well, they think they tried the arena football here in Hartford, too.
Yeah, and
I
think there's still an arena league.
Yeah, it's actually, I have watched it. I remember I went to an arena game. It was like the Wolf Dogs or Wolf Pack or whatever. It was some kind of Sea Dogs, something like that. Brutal. No, that's brutal. It was just like brutal. So, Julia, I don't know if you're a sports fan, but any thoughts? Are you a sports fan at all?
I'm not particularly.
Okay, fair enough. That's good. So
that's XFL?
XFL. Now, do you think before we move on,
there's going to be another league too. There's another one coming up called the Alliance of American Football. So there might even be some competition amongst the contrarians,
and the competitors, yes,
and they're a little bit more connected to traditional NFL folk rather than the WWE kind of wrestling mantra.
Do you think it was a mistake to brand it the XFL?
I think so. I think they should have rebranded it.
I would agree with all of you, yes. In other words, it's like you have the Etzel, okay?
Yeah.
That was one of the colossal failures of automotive history. So why would you come out with a 19, let's say in 2005, the Etzel 2. The Etzel 2.
Yeah. And if their pitch is pure play football, when, Julia, you're not a sports fan, but
the
if
other
I
one
say
was the reverse of
it's
that.
going to say the letter X, it's not going to have the right connotation.
I don't think it means like porn. It's just kind of like...
No, I understand that, but that's not...
It's just like schlock. X is schlock. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, why not just have it something like the Central Football League, whatever it is, the whatever. I can't think of a name now, but I think
developmental. To try to make it look like somewhat of a.
You don't want to do developmental because people are not going to pay money to see developmentally impaired people.
And people are protesting.
The protest league that would go well. Yeah. The Human Rights Identity Politics Football League of America.
Afros
that would be good, right?
In the
stands, yes.
Souvenirs, yeah.
So, yeah, I would say less. I would say, so let's go with the final numbers, gentlemen. I would say it has a 25% chance of success.
I'll go with 5.
Marty?
I'll go, I feel like I'm on The Price is Right. I'm going to go 35 on that one.
You're going to go $1?
There you go. Yeah, I love that $1 more. So let's move on to, now, Julia, are you politically savvy at all?
In a way, I like to think I keep up with the news.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we're not putting. You can just chime in whenever you want. She's doing a heck of a job, by the way. And what do you think of? I didn't really get your opinion, Marty, about a funk show. I think there's a huge market for that.
Oh yeah, she has a tap on what her community here at Wesleyan was all about. Funk is funky, and then depending upon the time slot that she gets, people aren't
probably
funky
be very early in the morning.
3 in the morning, maybe around test time and finals and writing papers. They might need a little boost there.
There you go. I think it's a great idea. So the jobs number came out. Chris, first you, then Marty. 3.9. What is it? What's your take on that? What does it mean, obviously, economically, and what does it mean politically?
Economically, it's continued good news
for
the economy. Yeah. And what I think is lost is that the U.S. has created jobs for 91 months in a row. That's a record for the United States. And as well as the rest of us in Studio A and B, is the United States has had some really good economic episodes in its history. We've gone 91 months in a row with job creation. So to continue to get good job numbers 91 months into the trend is pretty darn impressive. And now that it's down to 3.9%.
By the way, that 4% is full employment.
Yeah, that's right.
So what does it mean politically in terms of, I would have to say, the Trump presidency and maybe even midterm elections? Remember, we always have this debate, like, since the Obama era, identity politics trumped, no pun intended, reality? Or, in other words, it used to be you vote your pocketbook. Has that really softened? So I would like your read on that first.
I'd like to think it's softened, but if you listen to the media, it hasn't.
No, I think you might have misinterpreted. I'm saying, when I said softened, I mean, It used to be black and white people. I don't mean color. I'm saying, black and white people vote their pocketbooks.
Oh, like pocketbook issues.
Right. And so now my contention is that used to be, even if you look at Richard Nixon, yes, he got impeached. His numbers only really tanked when the economy started tanking.
Yes.
Okay. So my point, because people vote their pocketbooks, but since the Obama tenure, is that now softened and people are more flexible on that?
I think it remains to be seen, but I don't think it's the same as it was in the past. And you and I have talked about this off air. It's also one of the reasons why Bill Clinton did not get in more trouble for his stuff going on, was because we had just an amazing economy. And let me just point out what these job numbers is. Hispanic unemployment is tied for the lowest record ever, and black unemployment set its second consecutive lowest level ever. And these are things that should be celebrated. Whether you want to give President Trump credit or President Obama credit, who cares? It's really great for this country that we're at these low numbers.
I would agree. Now, the other thing is, before we throw it out to Marty, is Whoa, we got to have a caller. Hold on. Well, let's throw it out to Marty.
Okay. Well, when you look at the numbers, I think it's great. When we talk about full employment, I think it's great. If we look at the demographics, as you pointed out, whether it's Latino or African American, men, women, college educated, high school educated, I'm sure that the numbers, vary from here to there. But one of the things that I've discovered here is that about 8% of the American labor force works in manufacturing, 8%. And it used to be up to like 24% back in the 60s. So automation in a lot of ways has infused, itself into the workforce. So jobs have changed. And I'm sure our young lady here today is going to be, perhaps doing a job down the road that maybe doesn't even exist.
I would agree with that. So let's see what our caller has to say about that. Caller, are you there?
Hi.
Yes.
Hi.
What's up?
I was calling in because reverbing.
I can't hear you. What's up?
I'm sorry. It's reverbing. I'll have to call back.
Okay.
Okay, just turn off your radio and then you can talk us directly.
Yes, there you go. Okay. So let's see. Hold on for 1 second before we.
So Marty,
go ahead.
So with the unemployment number, it is fair to say, though, for people that are a little bit more pessimistic, is that there's still a lot of people that are not counted into government roles. And even though the mainline number is 3.9%, it's not like the job market is perfect. There's still a lot of people that are underemployed, that might have 2 part-time jobs instead of 1 full-time job. There are a lot of people that are not in their field of choice and instead might be waiting tables or bartending. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that might not be, their full employment for them personally in their household.
Yep.
But this trend that started under President Obama, and he certainly gets credit, and has continued under Donald Trump, is doing wonders for the economy. Marty, our friend Jeff often says a job is sacred, and the fact that more Americans have jobs and have the ability to find new jobs if they should need or want one is really great for the
But what does it mean politically, especially for the Trump administration?
I think it means tremendous things for Donald Trump, and I think it means that
What does it mean for the
today,
midterm?
I think it will help the Republicans in power, but not as much as you would think, because
all the distractions.
but Donald Trump isn't really aligned with the Republicans. He's not. He's much more.
Actually, I agree with that. That's a good point, because it's really funny because you have this Mueller investigation, which is really just a fishing expedition.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is like morphed into, what is it, this Sky Daniels, whatever her name is? Stormy Daniels, whatever her name is. What has that to do with collusion? Absolutely nothing, obviously, right? So they're in search of a crime, okay? Not a crime.
Yeah, they're investigating a person and his friends, looking for a crime, as opposed to
a crime.
They have a crime and they're looking for the culprit.
The evidence, yes. Where is it that, that even like they had, what's his name? The guy, he's McCain's good buddy, them in the dynamic duo that never met a war.
Lindsey Graham?
Yeah.
From South Carolina?
Both of them, him and McCain, 2 people that never met a war or an opportunity for war they didn't like. So he was on a show and he was talking about how crazy the investigation is, but he said that if Trump fires Mueller, he's in...
Yeah, so, going back to my personal thought with Donald Trump is that he is kind of like a Republican, but not in the classic sense how George W. Bush was a Republican or President Obama was a Democrat. Right. So I'm not sure how much of a tailwind Donald Trump will have for the Republican Party
economically,
that often distances themselves from Donald Trump.
My point is, though, that no Republican in power has Trump's back. Because if he was a traditional Republican, they would say, okay, time out with this. This is a joke. Right. This is nonsensical. But let's try our caller again, see if it's her or us. Because I'm looking at the board. You've just had your training, right?
Yes.
Uh-oh, you're on the spot now.
Put her on the spot, Jeff.
You're a Wesleyan student. You're a smart person. I think everything's in order, doesn't it?
Everything seems to be.
Did we lose the caller?
Could we do a drum roll?
There you go. Let's see. Caller, are you there?
I am here.
Hi, it was you.
It was me.
So what say you? What's up?
I was just wondering, I just came in late, but I was wondering if anyone saw the article in the Hartford Courant about Joe Ganem's run and how they interviewed all of these people and they're like, oh, give him a second chance and he deserves to run for governor. I was incredulous.
Oh, no, he's a convicted felon.
I know.
And Bridgeport is not exactly, the city on the hill. I mean,
right, but they interviewed people from Hartford and East Hartford, and I was just like, are you kidding?
No, I actually think any Democrat, you never know in this state, it's pretty, I think it would be a little difficult for a Democrat to kind of win after Malloy's tenure as governor of the century, don't you think?
Yes, I saw an interesting poll of, who do you think you'll vote for in the next election? And it was like 5 Republicans and 1 independent before any Democrats.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, it was so funny. Yeah, absolutely. How do you possibly even think about running? That I'm a Democrat and I can just carry the torch another 4 years of Democratic policies. What do you think? Connecticut's like officially bankrupt or what?
Well, yeah, we're the 49th state.
Yeah.
In economic recovery. We're one above Louisiana.
Yeah, no, it's really amazing. I think that would be a real difficult scenario. Now, what do you think of the jobs number? What do you think, went down to 3.9%, which is actually below full employment or above full employment?
I think that's a lie. You have a lot of people. I know a person that went to a employment fair yesterday in Meriden, and the average age was about 65 to 70.
Oh, say that again. What's that?
The people that were there.
Unemployment fair, and the average age was 65 to 70 of people looking for work.
Oh yeah, well yeah, that would be obviously people that would be officially in retirement age. I don't believe those numbers in terms of 3.9. I've said, when it was the height of the recession, the number was at 10. I think we had experts on that said it was more approaching like 20. I don't know where, when they have the thing that if someone leaves, in other words, stops looking for a job, they're officially not unemployed anymore. I think that's right. But you have to say that the employment situation is a lot better than it was 6-10 years ago, correct?
I think it is better, but they're filling it in with lots of retail jobs, lower end jobs, part-time jobs, and people are getting laid off or fired or whatever from their jobs, and they're looking for work, and they're supplementing 2-3 jobs. They're not the same jobs as before.
Oh, there's no question that America's changed in terms of at least economically. You're right. It used to be you get a job at either manufacturing or in corporate America, the Aetna or something like that if you're in Connecticut, and you had a sustainable, long-term situation. Those days are over, correct, caller?
Correct.
Very good. Anything else on your mind?
Oh, I just wanted to talk about the money that's going to the 1,900 tech jobs.
Go ahead.
There's high schools right now that are doing great programs of technical training, and then with internships at like Electric Boat and other places. So
I think that's fantastic, because Mike Rowe, I believe, is his name, the guy who does Dirty Jobs, and he's really fantastic. Not only did he have a show called How Beer Changed History, which was kind of fun, but he has a whole thing about what the world does not need is another marketing director. What it does need, he was talking about like a heavy truck mechanic, just for one, not that that's for everyone, after 2 years makes over $100,000 with virtually lifetime employment. So everyone's into all these jobs are open. Everyone wants to, it's beneath them or whatever, but that's basically sustainable living, isn't it?
They're making bank. I mean, they're so desperate for welders right now. They said in the next 10 to 15 years, 95% of the American welders are going to be retiring. The average income for a welder is $120,000.
Yeah, I know, but and I agree with that. And you have basically lifetime employment. I just don't. Go ahead.
I think a lot of students in high school right now are definitely looking at other options.
So you think it's changing?
Yes.
Interesting. I think Marty has a question, maybe, possibly.
Yeah, I was going to bring up that very point, that a lot of kids, even though they have the aptitude to go to college, are opting out to go to those technical kinds of options because, one, they don't want to be heavy with the debt, and the options down at the end of the line may not be at the same level as what you've just discussed here. With the technical training, whether it's diesel training or any other kind of whether it's masonry or anything else that might be out there. I know.
Right. I mean, you pay $26,000 for a year, 18 months of training with an internship. You come out making 40, but within 2 years you can make 70, 80, whatever.
And it's also becoming a little bit more gender neutral, so there's a lot of opportunities for young ladies as well.
Do you think sometimes colleges have some responsibility in terms of, having majors like dolphin studies or something like that? I mean, and kids, young people. Let's throw out to our intern, Julia. Wait, hold on. Julia, what do you think about that? That maybe colleges should because of the debt and the expenses are so high, maybe direct students, you can't force them into saying, you can choose, ancient architecture, but the job market's really not that good. What do you think about that?
I hear that argument, and going to a liberal arts school like Wesleyan, we definitely feel that. But I'm kind of the mindset of no matter what you major in, it's about the critical thinking skills.
Something I actually agree with you, and hear me out. Caller, maybe you can comment on this. I actually 100% agree. I think college has become morphed into, I don't know what you want to call it anymore.
I think 3.0.
You see, that it's an extension of high school. Like, in other words, business. You could teach someone marketing in a weekend. Like, you don't really need a 4-year degree. Really, please stop it.
My son is graduating in 2 weeks, and he's already working in his field in IT. They actually hired him last year.
Yes.
And he was. He needed the degree. They kept telling him, we can't hire you without the promise that you're going to finish your degree. And he's very, he's like, I paid all this money to go to school. And he goes local to a local college here in Connecticut. But he said, I'm taking my 3rd history class, and it has nothing to do with my major.
Yeah, well, I do agree with Julia in terms of college has morphed, because I think it should be about critical thinking. Like, it's really interesting that liberal arts is not really held in that high of an esteem for like employers, like business, and where it really should be.
Critical thinking. I think they're just trying to push these kids out in a couple of years, and you have to fill out these prereqs and recs, and and adding extra time to your college because of the prereqs have to be done, and then in order to finish out your major, you have to do certain things, and. Well, I don't know. My son, who, bridged that gap between college and the working world, said he could have done it in 2 years.
No, very good. Well, thank you very much for the call, and good luck for your son. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Take care. Well, that was a good call. We invite our other callers to call in at 860-685-7700, 685-7700.
I think that was a good advertisement for community college that I think oftentimes gets a bad rap, so that somebody could be working on their 4-year degree if, in fact, they wanted to.
I think community college is amazing.
Yeah.
Because you can go 2 years, save a hell of a lot of money, and you can transfer to any school you want. I think it's fantastic.
And I think some of the things that we've talked about, oftentimes, like you're saying about ancient architectures training and all, a lot of that is basically keeping the professors employed. So, they keep these programs going because they don't want to lose out on their own research, so they propagate it within their own departments, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy sometimes.
Chris, I have a question for you. Conway West was in the news, basically saying, I'm on board with Trump, for lack of a better, phraseology.
Yes.
Do you think that the Democratic Party would be concerned about the certain dyed-in-the-wool constituency, let's say African Americans, traditionally Jews, big part of the Democratic Party? Do you think they have a fear that they might be leaving the reservation?
Yeah, it's an enormous fear for them, because if the Democratic Party does not get 90% or greater of the African American vote, they are going to struggle mightily to win national elections. And where you have Trump, for all his faults, has done some outreach, and with the unemployment number in the black community being so low, and some leaders like Kanye coming out in support of him.
Social icons, kind of.
Yeah, that poses a significant problem, and that's why he got a lot of backlash.
They're trying to push that down. Yes, Julia.
I think that, the Kanye endorsing Trump thing, I think as much as it might seem like a stand, I think people are more just rejecting him as an icon rather than sort of adopting his ideals.
So they think it's like a Kardashian stunt.
Right, and, they question his mental health, and, a lot of people feel very betrayed
So wait,
by
that's
him.
a good point. So it's the messenger that there's really not a true read. If it was someone else who didn't have those issues, then it's more of something we could have more of a discussion on.
Right.
Very good. Chris, any other thoughts on that?
I
do think, before you say something, I do think the Democratic Party, let's just talk about employment, has a fear that African American unemployment is at its lowest level. If you don't need big government, what do you need the Democratic Party for? And the other constituencies, let's say Jewish population, the Democratic Party certainly shifted to be very anti-Israel.
Yes. And it goes back to what you said before. If, let's say, the African community decided, not all of them, but a decent percentage decided to vote their pocketbooks and say, hey, I got the best job I've had in my lifetime or in 10 years, and things are looking up, and, my brother and sister and nephew and so on, they're all doing good economically, and they vote their pocketbooks, that could pose a significant trend change in what we've seen in the elections.
I like that. What if you did break decades of government dependency? Now, all of a sudden, they're not beholden to the Democratic Party, correct?
That's right.
Julia, what do you think of that? Any thoughts on that? In other words, the economy improves, let's say underemployed or unemployed African Americans who really look to the Democratic Party to some degree for their, if you will, livelihood, no longer need big government. Do the Democrats run the risk of them exiting the party?
I would be unsure about that because I think Trump is just such an unpopular figure that I have a hard time believing that even with the economic developments that they would
and that's a good point. What makes, as a young person, and by the way, 860 if you'd like to call in and join our discussion, 860-685-7700, 685-7700. I think this is very interesting. I think, gentlemen, you might agree, to get a young person's perspective. What makes Trump so unappealing besides his orange hair?
Well, that's definitely part of it. But I think it, in the culture that we've, young people have sort of developed through social media and, social justice. And I think there's really been a resurgence of that. And to have someone come along who rejects all of that feels like an attack on our culture. Just all of his crazy publicity mishaps. I think he's just kind of hard to take seriously for a young person.
Mm-hmm. But how about things in terms of the good economy, maybe a better America being held in maybe higher esteem globally, that still doesn't get any traction?
I don't know if young people are really thinking that hard about the
So they're
economy.
thinking about more social justice.
I would say that that's the forefront.
And that's one of my points, is that, Chris, when I made the point, is that, yes, I think Julia is accurate. Maybe you and Marty's comment after that is that social justice has, no pun intended, trumped things, traditional bread and butters, like economic growth, foreign policy. So any comments, Chris, then Marty?
No, but I think, the difference of opinion perhaps between her and I does bring about what the fall lines might be is, Trump is not very likable and he doesn't fit in with the social justice movement. But yet, if you have more people with jobs and more people with better economic fortunes, how does that play out in the electorate? Look at the scales.
Do we know
where
really?
Does it fall?
But no, we do agree. Do we? I think we do. That in 1980, it'd be a slam dunk. It's the economy
for economics. Yes, even in Clinton's day,
it was the economy.
It was the economy, but with today's 24/7 news cycle and with a more diverse country
and people growing up under Obama, young people like Julie, a certain climate of more social justice warriors. So I think that would be Marty, your comments.
Well, the social justice, I think, comes with the communication tools. We've seen the strength of an Instagram and to a Facebook, just coming out of the movement out of Florida after that tragic shooting. Now the kids are actually getting pushed back upon, and they're starting to get a feeling for what it's really like. Certainly there was a lot of support down the road, when the first the shooting took place at the high school. But now that's starting to wane as the kids start to continue their movement, and now they're starting to realize they have not been embraced, by a lot of the older folks and by the NRA and all the rest of that. The African Americans, I don't think that they could come to one point in time when the president or anybody from his cabinet has reached out during any of their tragedies. The Black Lives Matter piece came out of the Trump thing. So, I mean...
No, Black Lives Matter came under Obama.
Well, I think a lot of it has continued on its way. And again, there's not much support from the Justice Department and other places along the way where even in that community they would feel like President Trump is supporting them.
Chris, any comments?
Things have been quiet on that front, though, recently in terms of Black Lives Movement and just social justice instead of, you've seen less protests since there was the Me Too, which wasn't so much racial. You had the gun oppositions
gender.
after Parkland throughout the country, but it seems like that's kind of died down, at least for now. It's not to say it's not simmering underneath the surface, but that seems to have calmed down. I can't think of much in the way of news.
Well, maybe I'll ask the question. Maybe does a good economy dampen some of that? I don't know. I'm asking the question.
I think a lot of it has been because there's been so many other things that the news cycle has chewed on that some of that stuff might have been pushed aside.
Could be.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the statistic on CNN, the attorney representing Stormy Daniels, who is very charismatic, made-for-TV guy. He's a fiery guy. He was on CNN 59 days out of 60.
Well, even if you... Julie, I'll throw out to you. Even if, by the way, you can join the discussion at 860-685-7700, 865-7700. I'd like to join the discussion. I would have to say, even if I was a super, super left-winger, the news media has pretty much lost any credibility. I mean, you watch CNN, it's 24/7. Yes, Donald Trump actually sunk the Titanic. His grandfather did. And if you watch Fox, yes, and Jesus and Trump are joined at the hip. It's just noise.
Sure.
I mean, and one thing is, we had another co-host at one time, Dr. Lopkin. He had a great, and I like your view on this, he had a great insight, or a good insight into this, is that it's really kind of dangerous. Because let's say a long time ago, you'd watch the evening news, and it was more always a little bit to the left, but you'd have more down the middle. You could form your own opinion. So what happens if you're liberal? You'll go to MSNBC or CNN. If you're conservative, Fox, and all you're doing is being fed what you already believe, so you don't form additional opinions, and that's why things are so polarized. Not that's the only reason, but a reason why I think people are so polarized in this country that they had to give out guidance on what not and what to say and not to say during Thanksgiving. I mean, because people are become more entrenched in their views. What do you think of that?
Right. I totally agree with that. I think it's hard to participate in the media right now and not feel like and get any semblance of truth out of it. I'm not really sure what the answer to that is, because
but does it make any sense that maybe business, Chris and Mark, business. News used to be almost a philanthropic endeavor because the CBS would have the news. It was just something.
It was for the social good.
Good, yes. They didn't really make money on it. They broke even, whatever. Yes, it helped in the ratings because you have a good nightly news. It's going to help with your prime time.
Sure.
But now it's about business. So you want to make money, and who are you going to target? Let's target liberals. Let's target conservatives. So just feed them what they want. Am I correct?
That is absolutely right.
Is it dangerous?
And they're not trying to cast a large net like a business will often do, as you say, who's my target audience? Where's my niche? And I'm going to market and focus and cater to that group. We now have a media in this country that does that as well, to the exclusion of everyone else. Unlike you said, in the era of Walter Cronkite, it casted a wide net and tried to give out news, play it relatively straight down the middle. And they would educate the public, and they'd have a shared experience. And we don't have that now, because if you watched MSNBC for 24 hours and then you watch Fox News for 24 hours,
you think you're on a different planet.
It couldn't have been the same country.
Yeah, it's not the same country.
And that's not really healthy. And the media also plays on our worst fears. Donald Trump can't just be wrong. He's got to be evil.
Now, wait a second. That's
and
a great point.
And it was the same thing to Obama.
No, that's a great point. Julie, I think Chris has an excellent point. Then, Marty, you can chime in in 1 second. You're kind of basically, you want to target, this is pure business, these people feel a certain way, so exploit it. That's what you're saying.
That's right.
And then it leads to, I think, people not being open-minded to think the way they maybe could.
I definitely agree with that. I think there's such a danger in sticking to one news source, but that's what most people do. But I think, sort of the best way to remedy that in our current moment is to just watch as much news as you can from different places.
I think it's good. Yes, I think it'd be good. Marty, any thoughts on that?
Well, that also takes into your account of the critical thinking skills. If you can take in all that data
Right.
and then be able to pull the chaff out and take, to the heart of the matter, that will be helpful. But not everybody does that because we mostly deal with emotions, right?
That's
but
true.
But if, going back to your marketing piece, when you watched, a particular program and they were telling you that Ivory soap was 99% pure, it was 99% pure on every single channel, right? That's what they were marketing it towards.
Yeah.
But now when you go to these different areas to listen to the news, it could be the same person talking, but they're giving you a whole different story. Just look at Giuliani in the last 36 hours. Holy moly. You're on 3 different channels and he's talking, he personally, not the data being referred to by, talking heads, but it's he himself. So you don't even know if they're selling you the same bill of goods.
Well, speaking of selling the same bill of goods, Julia, and getting basically fed red meat if you're, left or right, I think isn't that a reason why people should go to WESU FM, where you got we're $18,000 left. That's a big nut to crack. Isn't that really a refreshing reason? You're going to have your funk show that's going to be refreshing instead of listening to corporate radio with the same nonsensical music 24/7. And isn't that a reason for our listeners to go out and go to WESUFM.org and click on the donation tab?
Absolutely. I was just thinking while we were having this conversation, a great way to be informed is to tune into this show and see what news you can glean out of that. So I really think that Freeform Radio is doing a great service in our, polarized political climate.
Excellent. Speaking of polarized climates, Marty, I'll throw it out to you, then Chris. The Mueller investigation, isn't that in essence a coup attempt?
I don't know.
Wow, that's a loaded question.
I don't think so. I don't know, a coup.
I think it's an actual.
I think
absolutely
it's
100%.
You asked me what I thought.
We're having a discussion.
What do you think?
I said I don't think it's a coup per se, a coup d'état.
What do you think it is?
I think right now it's a muddled mess. I think so many people have had. It's been on so long, and the path has gone in so many different directions. I think if you were to ask 10 people what the investigation was about, you'd probably get 8 different, ideas as to what the problem is.
You probably would.
Can I ask Marty a question?
Go ahead.
Just because we'll probably disagree. Is it unfair to say, hey, Mr. Mueller, you've done the investigation.
What's up?
It's been
year,
15 months, 16
whatever,
months,
yeah.
whatever. Let's put a time limit on it. I don't want to end it prematurely, but let's set some guidelines.
Let's end this now.
You've
had a year.
How much more time do you need? Let's put a deadline
20
on
years.
it.
And by the way,
do you have any problem with that?
Well, that's why I think Giuliani was brought in, just to say, hey, look, guys, let's kind of put a cap on this thing.
And is Jeff Sessions maybe developmentally handicapped?
Yeah, well, I think initially he was probably following the law, but now because if you do follow the law, you're part of the witch hunt.
Well, he should have told Trump that he's going to recluse himself. Okay, that was ridiculous.
Well, I don't think he actually knew all the things in advance.
I don't think Mr. Mueller's investigation should be cut short, but I don't think it should go on in perpetuity. It's
I think
a drag on the government.
If you have 15 months, you should be able to determine if there was collusion. If you have 15 months, unlimited resources, that's enough time. Thank you very much. Okay,
right.
What did you find out?
We're
not talking about Stormy Daniels and Cohn and this person. Right. What is about the collusion?
Yes.
That's it. You have 15 months.
I don't disagree. I mean, so basically show us what you have. And then if you got something, maybe you move on, but you got to show what you have.
You got to make a monthly, quarterly report. And both of you were aghast. I believe it is a coup attempt by the entrenched power base that is tossing and turning about an outsider.
I believe it's I agree with you, Jeff.
It is a high-tech coup attempt.
The reality, though, is that you can't. You got to be smart about cutting it off, and I think having a time limit to say, show us what you have, is the way to win over the American people, not
okay, then why don't you talk about the Democrats and Republicans? Why isn't anyone in the Republican establishment, because I think they both feed off the same trough, by the way, say, okay, it's been 15 months, time's up. What do you have?
Because when Donald Trump talks about draining the swamp and his
talking about
election
draining
as
them.
an outsider, he was elected spending much less money than previous presidential candidates, spent much less than Hillary Clinton. He's a threat to them just like he is to the Democrats because of his non-traditional, non-conformist outsider posture. So they're not really his friend any more than the Democrats, or maybe a little bit more than the Democrats. But I think it's better for the country as a whole to say, Mueller, you have 60 more days. Let us know what you have. I'm not saying it has to be 60 days, but bring it to a conclusion. It'll be better for the country.
Marty, do you think Chris has a valid point? And
I'd like to see some timeline. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. Do you think he has a valid point? And also, do you think that what he said about the Republicans is that they want basically Trump to be taken down just as much as the Democrats?
I would imagine there are some of them that are like that. I'm certainly not Devin Nunes. He's certainly not one to take him out. But the whole idea of draining the swamp, can we get rid of that little statement? I mean, he's not only not drained the swamp, he's brought in more alligators than anybody. I mean, you look at anybody that's on his cabinet, and there's probably not one that hasn't been investigated for doing something improper. And Pruitt is right at the top, and then you've got the guy in Interior, and then you've got the one at Labor. I mean, and then certainly Betsy DeVos in Education. So
how about with Obama, with head of the IRS, with Holder, Fast and Furious, with Loretta Lynch? We just met in the tarmac and talked about grandchildren. I mean, there's any problem?
I'm not saying anybody is perfect, but don't tell me that he was he was going to change the way things have run. If anything, I think he's muddied the waters.
Okay,
so the only way I know they're draining the swamp is when I watch Swamp People, on TV, and they're killing gators.
But Marty, to respectfully disagree with you is that you could tell a lot by who their enemies are. And when I look at who Donald Trump's opposition often is, that makes me think that he's on the right track. And so just because they're investigating Donald Trump, this administration has been treated so unfairly. They talked about impeachment the day after the election.
Actually, I really do. I'll stand behind it. It is a coup attempt. What they did is, okay, this guy's coming in, and basically, this investigation has zapped at least 30% of the initiative of what Donald Trump could have, maybe should have, or could have done. And it's a way of putting essentially the kibosh on it. And potentially lead to impeachment. And by the way, Joel, I'll throw it at you. If Trump gets impeached for Stormy Daniels, and everyone might applaud who hates Trump, and there's many people, and maybe deservingly so, be careful what you wish for, because if that's the new bar, then wait till a Democrat comes in, and now he or she, let's say, in 1999 did this, and let's impeach him. Do you think that's a slippery slope?
I think I'd say that's a slippery slope. I mean,
if Trump is guilty of collusion, if he is in fact, then fine,
bring him down.
Bring him down. And if you were getting to, and by the way, Trump, let me just be clear, I think he's done many things good, many things not so good. As a person, I think his character is highly flawed. When you're married, your wife's pregnant, and you're having an affair with a porn star, that's not good. I mean, that's not good.
Wow, Jeff breaking new ground there.
Breaking no ground. I mean, how can you say that's? I mean, that's.
Are you impressed with that stance, Julia?
Sure.
Well, I mean, you don't have to be impressed. I'm just saying that as a character, a reflection on his character, that's not good.
I think there's a lot of things that reflect on his character even more than that.
Well, that's pretty bad. I mean, first of all, nothing to do. You're kind of endangering someone. A porn star. That's pretty not a good thing. We'll just leave it at that. And she's pregnant. I mean, that's. I don't know how she doesn't divorce him immediately.
She probably has.
Yeah.
A pretty good prenup.
Yeah.
Plus, you've got the Secret Service outside the door saying, "Sorry, honey, you can't leave today."
I don't get it, because I mean, it's got to be embarrassing. She's at these Easter egg hunts and blah blah blah, and meanwhile, I mean, I'm sorry, there is levels of craziness that's nuts.
So in the time we have left, Jeff, I'm just dying to get your opinion, because you asked a question about the Mueller investigation. What do you think will happen? Not what you hope to happen, not my opinion on what's going to happen. What do you think actually is going to happen over, let's say, the next 30 or 60 days?
I think it's a great question. I think that if you give an open-ended, no support, you have Sessions, the boy genius, who should have told Trump he's going to recall. So there's no protection for Trump. Open-ended, the knives are already coming out. I believe there's a good chance that something bad for Trump will happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you think there will be news? You think the Mueller investigation is going to take a turn for something that's definitively negative, not speculation, where Donald Trump is charged with something?
Well, there could be, and I think that, and I think that's very dangerous for the country, because if you're going to do that, then the next time a Democrat gets in, you immediately get a special counsel, and they're charged with unlimited funds to find something on that person. And I was against it when Kenneth Starr did that under Clinton. It went from, I think it was like the Whitewater, then it was Travelgate, then it morphed to Monica Lewinsky. It was an 8-year witch hunt. That's what it was.
Did it last 8 years?
7, whatever.
But, it was a long time.
It was a long time.
We should look that up.
Yeah, and it went from one to another. So these things never stop. And I think Jeff Sessions, I don't think he has a president, and he's so dumb that they asked him in this congressional hearing, what do you think of Rob Rosenstein? And it was a setup question to say he's not doing good. He's a fine and honorable man. It's like, oh, God, are you stupid? Anyway, so I do think that, I have to say, beyond the personality of Donald Trump, I believe the powers to be are scared to death of him, because what he's doing for the economy, what he's doing in foreign, and the social justice is a completely different area, but economically and in world events, I think things are exponentially different for Chris than Marty than they were 4 years ago. What do you think?
You separate that the character, and if you just looked at his
That's
resume,
the results, no character.
Resume as a president, including the hope that the North Korea situation gets resolved in a very positive way,
After
which
30
it could.
years
It may not, but it could. You would have to score him with high marks, despite his stupid statements, him getting into a fight with everyone, his bombastic attitude, and his trouble with telling the truth. So it's an odd time. But if you're just scoring the results, including the economy, it's hard not to give him high scores. I'm sorry. I know others might disagree, but I think it's the better argument of the two.
Marty, real quick before we go into scoring and beyond the personality.
I would give him a D.
Why? Economically, a D?
Well, you're generally speaking, he's lost at least 25 to 30 people that worked for him, within the Oval Office, within the West Wing.
You're just saying the results.
I'm still giving it a D. I don't know what he's resulted. I mean, a lot of the unemployment stuff that we're talking about has been over a period of time, certainly not just within his timeline. So he's kind of a part of somebody else's work as well. I'm not going to not give him some credit for that. I'm not going to, maybe his erratic behaviors internationally has maybe moved some countries. Maybe that's why North Korea is moving in a little bit more to resolute some of their issues with their neighbors. China.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
We got so Julia. Before we break up, by the way, you've been a fantastic intern. What would you score? I shudder to think, but what would you score Donald Trump?
Overall, I'd have to give him a failing grade.
F. So you're even worse than Marty. All right, so worst score.
Yeah.
So let's get into one news item.
Okay. We're getting towards the end of the school year, and there's a lot of communities that are reviewing their curriculum, and it looks like there are some parts of the United States that are looking at their history curriculum, particularly around the Holocaust. It's an issue that over the years has lost some interest in the textbooks, and we certainly know that there's some communities that are still suffering generationally through that. And with this rise of nationalism throughout the world, a lot of people are concerned that some of those behaviors might lead to where we have seen that before, which was a terrible tragedy. So
you're saying that it's becoming a bigger thing in the textbooks?
It's become less and less, and they'd like to have it more brought in because some people don't really understand the consequences of what we're seeing around the world.
Got it. So let's get into buzzwords.
Okay. Speaking of which, what about Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu? What do you think of his recent proclamations about Iran?
Chris?
It'd be interesting to see if he actually has the goods, or if it was just
basically had the info. I assume he had the information.
Yeah,
I think How about Karl Marx? It's his 200th birthday.
He would be the head of the Democratic Party. Go ahead. He already is.
Yeah,
he would be the next nominee.
No question.
They need one anyway. So
yes, exactly.
Yeah, Puerto Rico financial relief.
That's a bottomless pit.
Well, at this point, out of the $41 million that they've been promised, they've been given 9.
That's not good.
So how about mosquitoes? I'm more concerned about that for you because you're an outdoors guy with your walking and your mountain
biking. Don't like mosquitoes and ticks. Julia, what about you?
Can't stand them.
Exactly.
Emmett Flood.
Don't know who he is.
Well, from the civil
he's the
rights
new White
era?
House counsel that used to be for Clinton.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's Cheney. Here's an interesting term: cultural appropriation.
What is that?
Well, that was where the young lady in Utah was getting a lot of pushback because she wore a Chinese-style dress for her prom.
I remember that. Yes, that's right. Well, Marty, Chris, great job, great show. Julia, great show.
Thank
Funk
you so much
show's
for
going to be
having
great.
me.
Did you enjoy your experience?
I did. I learned a lot.
Well, Gary, you learned from the masters. Thank everyone for tuning in, and our caller. Thank you very much. We'll be back next week with another exciting edition of The Buzz.